Everyone blames the portco CEO when revenue misses plan. The board tells the CEO to fire the VP of sales, maybe brings in a new CRO, resets the targets, and tells the CEO to fix it. And nobody, seriously, nobody asks whether the board itself had any idea what questions to ask about the commercial engine before things went sideways. That's the conversation I want to have today, because I believe that we're letting PE boards off the hook on commercial governance, and it's costing sponsors real money in the extended hold periods, compressed multiples, and value creation plans that never actually create value. Here's what I see over and over again in conversations with PE-backed industrial companies. The board typically spends in a meeting 90 minutes each on financials and operations, maybe 15 minutes on HR, and then there's the pipeline slide showing everything up and to the right. Often there's a second slide highlighting high-profile deals sitting in the pipeline. Questions typically sound like, why hasn't that closed yet? Are you confident the next quarter is when we'll start to see it all start to happen? That's not governance. That's a checkbox. If you ask that same board to evaluate the operational efficiency of a manufacturing line without understanding OEE, without knowing what availability, performance, and quality mean in that context, they'd laugh at you. They'd say you can't govern what you don't understand. But that's exactly what often happens around GTM. If directors don't instinctively understand pipeline quality, they won't know how to evaluate whether a sales forecast is real or fiction. They can't distinguish between a sales team that's genuinely building pipeline and one that's just busy. They don't know what a healthy conversion rate looks like for their industry, their deal size, their sales cycle. And because they don't understand it, they don't ask the right questions. And because they can't ask the right questions, the CEO isn't held to the right standard. And because the CEO isn't held to the right standard, the commercial engine drifts, and nobody catches it until the numbers miss repeatedly. This is a governance failure, not just an operator failure. So let's pause for a moment. True, directors are not there to operate, nose in, fingers out, we all know that. But they can't know the right questions to ask, and more importantly, vet the answers they receive if they don't have operational GTM experience. I'll drop a link below for an article that I wrote for Private Company Director magazine on this topic. Now, I'm not saying portco CEOs are blameless. Many of them need sharper commercial instincts, even though they're often ops and finance folks. But the board's job is to provide oversight and accountability. And on the revenue side, most PE boards are functionally illiterate. Think about what they'd need to know to actually govern commercial performance. They need to understand how the funnel works, not just the number at the top, but conversion rates at each stage, average deal velocity, what percentages of revenue comes from new logos versus the existing accounts, and how to impact those critical conversion rates. They need to understand what drives pipeline creation. Is it the marketing actually generating qualified demand? Or is it marketing simply producing activity reports that look busy? Is the sales team prospecting, or are they managing inbound leads and farming existing relationships primarily? They need to understand sales talent quality, not just whether the team hit quota last year, but whether individual reps have competencies to win in the market. The investment thesis requires this knowledge. Can sales rep hunt new logos? Can they sell at the executive level? Can they manage complex buying processes with 5 or 6 decision makers? Can they create projects? Can they move nice-to-have deals to must-have? Can they overcome the status quo and buyer indecision and in a massive risk aversion? Most boards can't answer any of these questions, and they don't know they should be asking them. I'm Ed Marsh, and I created the ORE, Overall Revenue Effectiveness, and the Quality of Sales frameworks specifically to close this gap. ORE is analogous to OEE, but applied to the front end of the business, to GTM and revenue growth, availability, performance, and quality, but for marketing, sales, and customer success. It gives boards a structured way to evaluate whether the commercial engine can actually produce what the model assumes. Quality of Sales provides an empirical toolkit to understand whether a GTM function is capable of executing on the investment thesis. Without something like that, you're governing by anecdote. You're relying on the CEO to self-report, the VP of sales to leave his happy years at home and be honest about the forecast, and the marketing team to tell you their programs are working. That's not oversight, that's trust. And trust is not a governance strategy. Here's what changes when boards actually govern the commercial function. First, they catch problems earlier. A declining conversion rate at the top of the funnel shows up 6 months before a revenue miss. If the board knows to look for it, they can act. If they don't, they find out when the quarter is already lost. Second, they hold operators to the right standard. Instead of asking, how's the pipeline, they ask, what's our pipeline coverage ratio at each stage, and how has that trended over the last 3 quarters? That's a fundamentally different conversation, and it produces fundamentally different accountability. Third, they make better talent decisions. When the board understands what commercial capability actually looks like, they stop accepting the CEO's assurance that we've got the right guy and start demanding evidence, assessment data, competency benchmarks, ramp metrics. They use the same rigor that they'd apply to evaluating the plant manager. So if you're a PE partner sitting on a portco board, here's the honest question. Can you explain right now how your portfolio company's revenue is actually generated? Not the financials, the mechanics, the funnel, the process, the people, the conversion rates, the leading indicators. If you can't, you're not providing governance on organic growth, which is the single biggest lever for value creation in your portfolio. You're outsourcing it entirely to operators who may or may not have been evaluated for the right competencies, and you're really just hoping it works out. But hope is not a strategy, and it's definitely not governance. If you want to bring the same rigor to revenue growth that you already bring to operations and finance, that's what ORE and QoS are designed for. You can find the framework at edmarshconsulting.com. Subscribe to this channel where I break down the specific ways industrial companies and their PE sponsors leave revenue on the growth table, or just reach out to me directly.